How does it feel to be back in front of a crowd? I don't know if you've been doing any speaking engagements like this recently, but obviously we all took about 2 years off from social gatherings and get-togethers like this. So how does it feel to be in front of a room after that experience?
It feels great to be back in front of a crowd. I've done a couple of talks since lockdown finished, and it takes a little while to get back into the flow of things again. But just to be able to meet up, chat, share ideas, have conversations, it's fantastic.
It is nice. So one of the things you mentioned that really stuck out at me, you had a line on a slide, and then I think you talked about it in your presentation. I'll paraphrase, but you said, at best, designers forget their own ideas and develop empathy. And to me, that's a very powerful statement. And I'm curious how you might translate that to someone who's maybe a learning designer. Like, what does that actually mean? How do you what does that look like in practice when you're sitting there at your desk working through a project? Like, what does it mean to be an empathetic designer?
I think it's a really good question, and I think certainly you do sometimes meet designers who develop a very kind of clear vision and passion for what they want to do, and that's great. And actually, quite often we will choose to work with people that have got a very specific style, an illustrator, or someone who has a very specific vision of what they think good design looks like. I think for the majority of designers, actually stepping away from our own interests and our own taste is the most important thing. So developing empathy for the end consumer, it's very rarely ourselves. So our end consumer might be younger, of a different race, of a different gender, of a different social background, to really get under the skin of understanding the perspectives of our end users, the physical requirements that they have, insights into their life. It generates a whole new set of ideas. It requires a lot of humility. So recognizing that actually we're not always right, that some of our ideas might be maybe even offensive to other people, but then to take that extra humble step of kind of going, help me understand, help me work out, and then start generating ideas that work for the requirements and needs of users as opposed to our own ideas.
Yeah. Well, you can take it a step further. You talked at length about having people from a certain culture designing for that culture or designing with that culture in mind. So, that even feels like a next step beyond just, designers thinking about being empathetic, but even then the company being empathetic about who their audience is and who's designing for them.
100%. And I think, one of the critical things that we're really thinking about is how do we build the design team and making sure that there's diversity in the design team so that we actually have a design team that reflects the user base. We have a design team with a diverse set of ideas and a diverse set of views. Now, there's no doubt that can sometimes mean the process takes longer. Getting to alignment when you've got diverse perspectives is not always easy. It is always worth it. So that bit of extra time where everybody is curious, listens and understands to each other and respects each other's ideas, it can take longer, but I believe you get to better results as a consequence. Design is a team game. And I think actually when you work in a team with real diversity, with inclusive behaviours, you get to better creative outcomes.
So one of the things I was thinking about listening to your talk is this idea of progress not always being linear and progress sort of being a step-by-step process. And you showed the example of, or you just talked about the example of brands sort of, maybe they start at a place of showing diversity in their collateral, in their marketing. But then there's a next step to actually putting into action through product design, through actually product lines. So just talk a little bit about some of the nuances between, yes, showing it in advertising is great, but what's that next step to truly putting inclusiveness into action and demonstrating it on a daily basis?
No, I think it's a really good question, and I think that the last thing I'd ever want to do is be in any way kind of critical of the sort of first or early steps that a brand might take. And we've been through that process ourselves, and if there isn't diversity being shown in marketing materials and advertising, I think it's a very clear step to take, which is let's actually show more diversity in our marketing work. It really is the first step, though, and at its worst, it can feel a little patronising to people, like you had a tick list of, different colours and races to put into your advert. But it's the first step. I think, as brands develop and mature in this space, actually really getting under the skin of who our user base is, what diversity and inclusion really means, and turning that into action, I think can get you through those kind of next levels. And I used an example of L'Oreal, for example, who've really thought about the variety of both skin tones and skin types for their makeup, and made sure that they are providing products that are very, very useful to you. And understanding that there's a wider variety of people using makeup. Actually, male skin is slightly different from female skin, and some men are choosing to wear makeup. So providing the functional benefits to that broader user group, and then showing that, rather than just saying, okay, let's have a whole mixture of men and women and different colours in our advertising. So getting under the skin to the genuine sort of functional benefits and requirements, rather than just showing people of different colour.
Maybe part of what you're describing is that you can simultaneously sort of celebrate and support good intent, but then also push people toward a fuller expression of their good intention.
Yeah, it's something in Diageo we describe as brand activism, which is you need to actually be actively involved in and making a demonstrable difference in the subject that you're talking about before you start talking about it. So the sort of iceberg model, which is make sure everything beneath the shore, the surface is there and is happening with the brand before you then talk about it.